Howdy, scientists. I know that often when we take an online class, one of the hardest parts can be figuring out what the heck the instructor wants for our discussion posts. At least that was my experience when I was an online learner. So I want to talk about some specific strategies and tips for improving your discussion posts and increasing the likelihood that you're going to meet that satisfactory criteria to get all of the points. So to start, let's review the rubric. So there are 5 criteria on which you're assessed when I look at your discussion posts: quantity, demonstrating understanding, the quality of your peer replies, the timeliness, and the mechanics. So quantity means 4 posts: initial post, self-reply, and then 2 peer replies. Demonstrating understanding, you need to show evidence of knowledge and understanding of the chemistry content and incorporate specific vocabulary or information from the week's reading or videos. Quality of peer replies really comes down to moving that conversation forward, showing appropriate depth of thinking and being relevant. And timeliness has 2 aspects to it. There's the aspect of your initial post, which needs to be made no later than Tuesday. We want to make it early in the week. And then the other aspect is your peer replies, which need to have 24 hours pass between them. Now, mechanics, I do not grade your posts necessarily on spelling and grammar per se, but if your sentence structure is in fact impacting the readability, if you're not writing at the college level to the point that I cannot understand the sentence and your peers cannot understand it, then that's what I mean there by mechanics. And you'll remember that you have to meet the satisfactory criteria in all 5 categories to receive the points. If you fail in one category, you have not posted a satisfactory, meet standard discussion post, and it is a 0. You can use a life happens in order to fix or redo certain aspects of it, and you can always let me know if you'd like to do that once you receive a 0. So I want to talk then about some tips to help you in these different areas and kind of what I'm looking for and what I mean. So let's talk about the 2 that students are the most likely to have an unsatisfactory or does not meet expectations, and that's about timeliness and quantity. So I want to give you some tips then and suggestions for increasing the likelihood that you're going to get these 2, since they are the most frequent places. And this does save me a lot of grading time, because if I see that you haven't met the timeline requirements or you don't have the quantity element, I immediately know that it's a 0 and I save quite a bit of grading time. And I know that might sound very selfish, like, oh yeah, great, she gave me a 0 so she could save some time. But the less time I spend reading through discussions that I already know are going to be 0s, the more time I have to help students and to develop content. So even though it sounds selfish, it's still in the end something that I'm trying to do to help students in the long run. So my big tip regarding timeliness is about following a schedule. If you set up a schedule that you follow every single week, you're going to increase the likelihood that you're repeatedly, every single time, meeting those timeliness requirements. So this is just a suggested schedule. You don't necessarily have to follow this one, but this would be my suggestion. On Monday, make your initial post. You don't have to do any research at all for this post. This post is not graded on correctness, accuracy, demonstrating understanding. The purpose of this post is to just stimulate your background knowledge. What do you already know? And if you know nothing for the question that you've chosen, that's okay. You can say, I don't know anything about the history of the periodic table, but I'm excited to learn about it. That's fine. So on Monday, make that initial post. Then on Wednesday or Thursday, kind of depending on when you have finished up reading and the videos, come back and make both your self-reply, which does need to be far more detailed, and then one of your peer replies. So that way, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you can come back and make that second peer reply, and 24 hours should have passed between the first peer reply. Now, this schedule might not work for you in your life, but come up with a schedule that you try to consistently follow that will allow you to meet those timeliness requirements. Following this schedule will also help with the quantity, the tips for quantity. So first of all, follow that schedule, because by following that schedule, you're automatically going to have 4. The next, save your posts to a Word document. That way you can easily see if you have 4 at the end of the week. This also is a nice tip for if your post, you did it, but for some reason it doesn't appear. You still have that copy of it, that when you get a 0 at the end of the week, you can email me and say, hey, I made this post, and here is the Word document. Can I still get credit? So that's another suggestion. And then a kind of simple one, just review your discussion board at the end of the week and look for, do I have 4? Search around and reread the whole discussion board, which is also a good just learning strategy as well. So the next place students sometimes aren't meet standard criteria is in demonstrating understanding. So when you're demonstrating understanding, you're showing me that you have learned the chemistry content, that you've grown in your chemistry knowledge, and that you are supporting that with evidence from the text or reading. You do not want to leave me wondering if you understand what you're talking about. So let me share some tips to help you show me what you know. You don't want to leave me having to guess or wonder or deduce or infer. I want to see it in your writing. So I think a big one is just push yourself to include more depth. Expect to write 3 to 5 sentences minimum for each question. And what I mean here is in your self-reply. You don't need to write paragraphs in your initial reply unless you really want to and unless you have that level of background knowledge. So I'm really talking here about your self-reply. So expect to write 3 to 5 sentences minimum. So maybe you're like, gosh, that's like a paragraph. I'm writing a paragraph for each question. So what are some ways that you could add details and depth to your responses that would demonstrate understanding? So first of all, build off of that initial post that you made. Identify where were you right, where were you wrong, or where was your knowledge incomplete. So you can start by saying, I was right. But you do not want to end it there, because that doesn't demonstrate much understanding unless that initial post was really very, very good. Next, define words in your post that relate to the week's content. If you tell me something about elements, and that's the main thing we were really learning about this week, I'd expect to see you tell me what an element is. Because again, you don't want to leave me wondering, does this student know what an element is? You want to make that knowledge really clear because you tell me. Support yourself with evidence from the book, from your reading, or from videos. So you can just directly quote something. You can quote a specific page. You can quote a specific video. First of all, this is actually part of that criterion in the rubric. Go back and reread that. Supports with evidence. So, but it also shows me that you can use data to support your argument, support your knowledge, which is very much a scientist thing to do. Another option is to explain the linkage to a specific learning objective from the week. So if we were learning about, if we watched a video that was about an egg absorbing water, and we had a learning objective from the week about osmosis, which is about the movement of water across the membrane, you have a way to take that learning objective from your week checklist and kind of answer and address it directly in your post. So these are some ways to really push yourself in depth. Let's look at some examples. So I want to start with a week example. I was right. The vegetable oil did not dissolve in water because it's polar and nonpolar. So I have a couple issues with this. First of all, I don't know it's which, vegetable oil or water. I'm left as the instructor wondering if they know what dissolving means, what it looks like. Do they know what polar and nonpolar looks like? So let's take that same example and expand on it using some of the very strategies that I listed. I was right. The vegetable oil did not dissolve in water. This is because water is polar and vegetable is nonpolar. Polar molecules have a partial charge and are very attracted to each other, etc., etc. You can read the rest of that. What I want you to see is that they defined words for me rather than leaving me to wonder if they know what they mean. They also used a specific passage from the text to support what they were saying as well. Notice that it really, you can tell right away, more thought has been put into that second one, more detail and depth. Next, quality of peer replies. So what I see a lot with peer replies is very short, simple compliments to each other. I really like what you said. It made me think about it in a new way. And I am all about complimenting each other. I think it's great, especially if you really mean it. Like, that was really good and it really did help me. But if you look at how we're going to be graded, it's about driving the conversation forward. You need to be adding to the conversation, not just telling your peer that you think they're awesome. So here are some tips for that peer reply. Ways to help. Now, these are directly from the syllabus, so I might go through them kind of quickly because you can review them later. So first of all, choose peers' posts that particularly interest you. It doesn't have to be the same question that you chose. So that will help you find more to say by the fact that you're already kind of interested or curious about it. You can share a memory or a way the post relates to your own life. You can add to it to be like, oh, I like that you said that. One time this happened to me and this is how that relates. Share a memory tip for how to learn it better. Add new information, new resources or research. Hey, I found this really good video that might help us. Oops. Find details or vocabulary that they might have left out and add. Oh, you said this, that's called osmosis. Politely correct misconceptions. So people are going to post things that are wrong, and you have an opportunity then to add to it. Ask clarifying questions, or what else, what's next, etc. Ask questions. Science always begets more science. So let's look at some examples here as well. Here's what it would call a non-example. I really like how you explained the video of sodium and water. It really helped me understand the process. Thanks. Again, this is very positive and I like that, but it does not drive the conversation forward. The only thing that's left to say to this is you're welcome. The conversation has ended. So a better example, we'll start with that same bit. It really helped me. As you stated though, and then you can see that they've added to it. They've defined the chemical change. And so not only did they add a definition, we also ask a question that shows relevance. It's not just some random question. I know we started with pure sodium, but I wonder what the name of the new substance is since this was a chemical change. So there's an example and a non-example, a way to do that well and a way to not get the points for it. So mechanics, I just have some quick tips. Avoid writing as if you were texting. Even if you are in fact using your phone to do your discussions, remember, this is a college level science class and you want to, bring that college level writing. So capitalize the word I and, use complete sentences, etc. A common suggestion or thing that I see students do is actually typing their posts in Word. That helps them find then grammar and spelling errors, and then they just copy and paste it to the discussion board. This also helps with that quantity tip we talked about earlier. You can tell if you have 4 in your Word document pretty easily. And then a really simple one, ask another person to read it over and ask them if it makes sense. Does this make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Again, you're not going to lose the points for like a misspelled word, but if I struggle to understand what you're trying to say because of your sentence structure or grammar, then you're not engaged in college level work. So where to go for additional support? You're like, I'm trying really hard, but I don't know what to do. That's okay. You can get there. You might not be there yet, but I genuinely believe every student in this class with the right support and help is capable of 10 out of 10 discussion posts. So some places for extra help. Our STEM Center. We have our STEM Center tutors who can help with the science, probably can also even just help with kind of the writing. We have a writing center. The STEM Center and Writing Center can both be accessed virtually and eventually, hopefully, face-to-face. We have the watering hole where you could post questions and I or another student might answer. And then, of course, you have your instructor. You can message me, you can stop by office hours, you can schedule an appointment. You and I can look over responses together. You could ask me to look at your discussion posts in advance. I'm not necessarily going to pre-grade them every week, but I can help you along in this process. Again, I know that an all or nothing grading system can seem really intimidating, but research has shown that it does drive up quality work. So you guys got this.